to our new releases May edition show. I'm here with my coworker Joy, and we're going to talk all about some new books coming out in the month of May. Joy, can you believe it's already May?
I cannot believe it, and I love it. Bring on summer.
Yeah,
Bring
I'm right
on
there
that.
with you. All the birds and the flowers.
Oh, winter is over. COVID is on the decline. Let's go.
Let's get ready. All right, so since everything we're talking about today is new, there is a print copy in the catalog that you can put a hold on, but you're probably not going to find a downloadable ebook or audiobook yet, but keep your eyes peeled. These are all popular and we expect they'll be on Overdrive and Libby as well. Okay, so now I'm going to switch screens so you can see the books we have chosen to talk about for you this month. And as usual, I will be discussing the fiction and Joy will do the nonfiction. So for my first book, I have Arsenic and Adobo, a Tita Rosie's Kitchen Mystery, Book 1. This is by Mia P. Manansala, and it comes out on May 4th. This is a highly anticipated mystery novel for 2021, according to BuzzFeed, and it's a highly anticipated novel of the year, mystery or otherwise, according to Book Riot. When 25-year-old Lila moves back home to recover from a breakup, she's tasked with saving her Tita Rosie's restaurant and has to deal with matchmaking aunties. But when a nasty food critic, who happens to be her high school ex, drops dead after a confrontation with Lila, her life turns into an Agatha Christie case, with the cops treating her like she's the only suspect, and the landlord itching to kick her family out and resell the storefront. Lila must conduct her own investigation. Armed with nosy aunties, her barista best bud Adina, and her trusted Dotson, Lila takes on the twisted case. This book got starred reviews from Library Journal, Publishers Weekly, and Booklist. It should be noted that this is not your grandma's cozy mystery. While it does emphasize the importance of family and friendship, there are also themes of possible police intimidation, drug usage, racism, and domestic violence. Library Journal said, "This debut introduces readers to Filipino-American food and culture. There are cozy tropes like the close-knit community and the food business, but emphasis on the Tagalog language and culture and drug dealing in a small town add gravity and individuality to this series kickoff." I'm really excited about this book. I like that it's being seen as an anticipated mystery novel and just an anticipated novel, no matter the genre. And it has a really cute Dotson on the cover. So that's really calling to me to read the book as well. All right, and here's our first nonfiction from Joy.
Oh, I would love a dachshund. So much for that. All right, my first choice for this month is Everybody, a book about freedom by Olivia Lang. Growing up in a lesbian household in the stridently homophobic Britain of the 1980s, novelist and cultural critic Olivia Lang, quote, felt she was not a girl at all, but something in between and as yet unnamed. The sharp dissonance between how I experienced myself and how I was assumed to be, she writes, was like a noose around my neck. In Everybody, a book about freedom, Lang reflects on her own experience to create a penetrating examination of the political and cultural meanings ascribed to bodies, as well as the relationships of bodies to power and freedom. The body, she writes, was central to the great cultural protests of the 1960s and beyond: gay rights, feminism, and civil rights. All of these, she says, were essentially struggles to be free of oppression based on the kind of body you inhabited. And if I might digress for a minute, I do hope that she includes disabled bodies somewhere here, because that certainly fits the theme. In her work, Lang explores in detail society's visceral fear of different kinds of bodies mixing too freely, and explores the lives of a disparate cast of characters who had complicated relationships with their own bodies, among them Susan Sontag, Allen Ginsberg, Malcolm X, Nina Simone, and Andrea Dworkin. In the end, she concludes, the body remains a source of pleasure and pain, both vulnerable and radiant with power. PW gave this book a starred review and calls it an impassioned and provocative study, while Kirkus says it is intellectually vigorous and emotionally stirring, and it comes out on May 4th.
I'm really impressed by how she tied all of these protests and power struggles to the body. I would not have thought of that.
I wouldn't. What an intriguing theme.
Yeah, simple, but so complex and encompassing.
Yes.
All right, here's my next one. Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, also coming out on May 4th. May 4th is a big day for May. So author George R.R. Martin from the Game of Thrones series says that this novel, Project Hail Mary, would have delighted Robert Heinlein and Isaac Asimov, who are two huge sort of founders of the science fiction genre. So you know this is going to be a good one. In the book, Ryland, a junior high school teacher turned reluctant astronaut, is the sole survivor on a desperate mission. And if he fails, humanity and the Earth itself will perish. Except that he doesn't know that. He can't even remember his name, let alone his assignment. All he knows is that he's been asleep for a long time. And he's just awakened millions of miles from home with nothing but two corpses for company. His crewmates dead, his memories fuzzily returning. Ryland realizes an impossible task confronts him. Hurtling through space on this tiny ship, it's up to him to puzzle out an impossible scientific mystery and conquer an extinction-level threat to our species. This book has lots of jaw-dropping plot twists, relentless tension, and there's an extraordinary dynamic between Ryland and an alien he encounters. The book got a starred review from Kirkus, but obviously it also got lots of great feedback from big authors like George R.R. Martin, but also Taylor Jenkins Reid, Ernest Cline, and Blake Crouch. Author Blake Crouch said, "Thrilling doesn't even begin to describe Project Hail Mary. This is the best book I've read in a long time. I cheered, I laughed, I cried, and when the twist arrived and the book revealed its true target, my jaw hit the floor. Mark my words, Project Hail Mary is destined to become a classic." And that's something I read in a lot of the reviews. They're saying this is Weir's master work. So if you really liked The Martian, it sounds like this one might be even better. Here's another from Joy.
Wow, I don't read much sci-fi, but this one sounds really good.
It does.
Well, my next choice for this month is The Secret to Superhuman Strength by Alison Bechdel. Okay, how many cartoonists do you know who've received a full-on review of their latest graphic novel from the New York Times? Not to mention a review replete with comparisons to Virginia Woolf, no less. Not many, I'm sure, but Alison Bechdel just did. Early in her career, Bechdel was a niche cartoonist, writing primarily about her fellow lesbians for an audience composed primarily of her fellow lesbians. Then in 2006, she published Fun Home, a graphic memoir focused on her relationship with her parents, to universal acclaim. This was followed by a second memoir, Are You My Mother?, a hit adaptation of Fun Home for Broadway, and a MacArthur Genius Grant, among many other prizes. And Alison Bechdel was a niche artist no more. 20 years in, however, she began to ask, where has my creative joy gone? The Secret to Superhuman Strength, Bechdel's first book in 10 years, records her lifelong susceptibility to every passing exercise trend. The more unnecessary gear required, the better. Decade by decade, Bechdel tracks her preoccupation with karate, yoga, inline skating, cross-country skiing, biking, running, hiking, mountain climbing, and yes, spin classes, all in an attempt to stave off what she herself describes as, quote, a distinct sense of dread in the face of inevitable aging. Like Jack Kerouac, who makes frequent appearances in this book, Bechdel hungers for a taste of the transcendence that rigorous physical activity sometimes affords. But the real secret to superhuman strength? Meaningful connection with others, and recognizing that the only thing to transcend is the idea that there is something to transcend. In this book, Bechdel alternates, and I quote from the New York Times, juicy pastels and candy colors with stark black and white pages as a way to illustrate two states of being. Frenetic activity on the one hand, quiet contemplation on the other. This book has received accolades from just about everyone. The Guardian reviewer calls it generous and roomy and says that, quote, to suffice it to say that while Bechdel's subjects are huge, the book never feels heavy. If it were a barbell, you'd be able to lift it with one hand. And just one more point, I usually buy 1 or 2 copies of the graphic novels that I purchase for our collection. I purchased 4 of this title because I expect it to be very popular.
I bet you're right. After 10 years, a lot of people are going to be excited to read something by her.
They've been waiting for this.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and here's my next choice. The Hour of the Witch by Chris Bojalian. This one is also coming out on May 4th. It's a most anticipated book of the year, according to LitHub and Crime Reads. It's set in Boston in 1662, where Mary is 24 years old. In England, she might have had many suitors, but here in the New World, Mary is the second wife of Thomas, a man as cruel as he is powerful. When Thomas drives a fork into the back of Mary's hand, breaking bones, she resolves that she must divorce him. But in a world where every neighbor is watching for signs of the devil, Mary soon becomes an object of suspicion. When tainted objects are discovered in her garden, when a boy she is treated with herbs dies, and when their servant runs screaming from her home, Mary must fight to escape both her marriage and the gallows. The author put lots of research into this book and cites numerous literary and academic sources and the acknowledgments. He also punctuates chapters with quotes drawn from historical court documents. According to a copy from the publisher Doubleday, the story is based on the first known divorce case citing abuse. As you might expect, this book uses dialogue appropriate to the time period, but also has some more modern themes like domestic abuse, toxic masculinity, and mass hysteria. There are flawed but compelling characters, and the book got a starred review from Booklist. Author Lisa Scottolini said, "This is riveting historical fiction, and it reads like the most page-turning of thrillers. Hour of the Witch is a woman's story, a romance, a history lesson, and a legal thriller." I know that there's a lot of fascination with witches here in Massachusetts because of Salem, so I thought this would be a fun one to feature, and I think it's impressive you put so much research into it as well. Here's another one from Joy.
My final choice for this month is Punch Me Up to the Gods, a memoir by Brian Broom. In Punch Me Up to the Gods, first-time author Broom chronicles the trauma of growing up Black and gay in Ohio in the late 1970s and early 80s. Good luck with that. He frankly details physical and emotional abuse at the hands of his father, white teachers, and neighborhood boys, as well as his later struggles with shame, substance abuse, and often futile, but sometimes hilarious attempts to find community among other Black gay men. In the course of this painful, urgent telling, he uncovers deep intergenerational traumas, queer phobia, and misogyny. But there are no easy villains or victims here. Instead, Broom's testimony rings out as a searing critique of soul-crushing systems and stereotypes. Broom's broken father and no-nonsense mother play critical roles in this book, but in the end, it is Brian's voice in the retelling that reveals the true depth of vulnerability of young Black men that is often quietly near to bursting at the seams. PW calls this work magnificent and harrowing. Kirkus calls it stellar and a must-read. Author Augustine Burroughs, author of Running with Scissors, says that Broom should win a Pulitzer for Punch Me Up to the Gods. And finally, author Kiese Lehman says, I'm not sure a book has ever had me sobbing, punching the air, and dying of laughter as much as this staggering debut. This stuff is special, except he doesn't exactly say stuff.
Well, this book, it does sound like it has a lot of special stuff in it. It's amazing he went through so much, but he also looks like he came out successful.
Yeah,
so.
Look at that. Doesn't he look confident in the picture on the right-hand side?
Yeah, he really does. All right, that brings us to the end of our show for today. Don't forget, we'll be back the first weekend of June with our June new releases show. My name is Devin. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to give us some likes and loves if you've enjoyed our show. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.
See you later, fellow readers.